Gonzaga basketball is back in action this Sunday, and the question remains, will Tyon Grant-Foster be joining them?
You are Locked On Zags, your daily podcast on the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, y'all? Welcome into the Locked On Zags podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host and longtime Gonzaga podcaster, Andy Patton, here to bring you news and updates on all things Zag athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets that you can use all across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. Well, folks, this is the final episode before we have real Gonzaga basketball to discuss. Not that craziness was fake basketball per se, but this will be Gonzaga's first time playing a different opponent on Sunday in an exhibition game. We'll talk all about that. We'll talk about the opponent. We'll talk about what we're looking for in this matchup, whether Tyon Grant-Foster is going to play. It's also a recruiting weekend for Gonzaga, so we'll touch on that as well. And then we're closing out the show and the week, continuing our series discussing the greatest Mark Few era Zags from various countries. We did all of Washington on Wednesday's episode. Last week, we talked Eastern European Zags. Today, we're talking some Zags from the western part of that continent. We're going to have some fun talking about 5 former Gonzaga players to close out the show. But we're leading again with the final episode before there's an actual Gonzaga basketball game. It may not count in the standings, but it is still an important tune-up game for Mark Few and the Zags. This game will be on Sunday, October 19th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Make sure you are ready. It is not an evening game for Gonzaga. It is a rare afternoon tilt for this program. 2 p.m. The game will be at the McCarthy Athletic Center. It will be broadcast live on SWX. So for those of you in the Spokane and Northern Idaho region who are able to get SWX, you will be able to watch this game on TV live on that channel. There will also be radio coverage, which will be on Varsity Sports app. So anybody can listen to this game no matter where you live. It does not matter. You should be able to listen to this game on the Varsity Sports app. If you are local to Spokane, you'll also be able to hear it on 96.1 FM as well. And for those who maybe aren't going to be able to watch this game, there will be live stats available at gozags.com, just like there was for Craziness, just like there is for every game. If you just go to the Gonzaga schedule page on their website, on the far right side, you'll see a spot for live stats. If the game is going on, you just click on that and it'll be updating throughout the contest. This is the first of 2 exhibition games for Gonzaga this upcoming season. Both of them are against non-Division I opponents. This game will be against Northwest University. We'll get more into the Eagles in a second. Their second exhibition game, Gonzaga's second exhibition game, will be a little over a week later on October 27th. Also in Spokane at the Kennel, that will be against a Division II team in Western Oregon from Monmouth, just outside of Salem. Let's meet the Northwest University Eagles, who Gonzaga will face on Sunday. The Eagles are an NAIA school located in Kirkland, Washington, and competing in the Cascade Collegiate Conference. As far as I know, this is the first time they have played Gonzaga in any kind of exhibition game, but I'm not sure that I trust a lot of the data, that the history data that they have goes back very far, particularly with regards to exhibition games. So it's possible these teams have played each other before, and that data is just not necessarily out there. This is a team that returns a couple of starters, including last year's second leading scorer in Trent Williams. They are also set to play Idaho State in an exhibition game this year as well. It's not uncommon to see these NAIA or non-D1 programs play in a couple of D1 schools per year, as those D1 schools like to fill out their exhibition schedule or even 1 or 2 of their non-conference games with non-D1 opponents. So not a shock to see Northwest playing some of those teams. This team struggled last year in the Cascade Collegiate Conference, or the CCC. They went 5-23 last year. That included going just 4-18 in conference play. So we'll see if they're able to turn things around. Again, there's certainly not as much roster turnover year over year as there is at the Division I level. So probably a lot of the same faces, but hopefully an opportunity for this team to turn things around, and getting a chance to compete against a program like Gonzaga will do nothing but make this team better for them, and will hopefully make Gonzaga better as well. We don't expect it to be a particularly competitive game in terms of who's going to win the basketball game, but that's not really the point for either team. For Gonzaga, this is an opportunity to get their newer players on the floor competing against somebody that's not their own teammates. It's an opportunity for Mark Few and the staff to roll with different lineups that they maybe weren't able to do in scrimmages or in practices or at Craziness, because, again, they have to play each other. So, like, for example, Gonzaga really wanted Graham Ike and Braden Huff to be on the same floor together at the Craziness in the Kennel event, because you wanted to see what that looked like, knowing that that's going to be your starting lineup this year. But there's also going to be times this year where Graham and Braden, one of them is playing with Ismail Adiani, or potentially Parker Jefferson, or potentially Steele Venters or Jalen Warley if they end up playing the 4. And that's difficult to do when you're scrimmaging each other, less difficult to do in an exhibition setting against a different opponent. So there's a lot of different things that we're hoping for, that we're wanting to see, that we're expecting to see from Gonzaga in this exhibition game. Before we get into those 5 key things that I'm going to be looking for personally, the big question is the status of Tyon Grant-Foster. And from my understanding, as a reminder, Tyon Grant-Foster was granted a practice waiver from the NCAA in early October. That means that he is allowed to, it's exactly what it sounds like, he is allowed to practice with Gonzaga. That meant he was allowed to participate at Craziness in the Kennel, because that is effectively a practice. In terms of what the NCAA considers it, it is a practice. So Grant-Foster can do that. He is not eligible to play in games for Gonzaga until the NCAA makes an official decision regarding his waiver for an extra year of eligibility. At this point, he is allowed to practice. He is not allowed to play. We do not know when the NCAA will actually make a final decision regarding his status. It was very difficult to find any legitimate information regarding what this means for Grant-Foster in an exhibition game. My assumption, based on the things that I have seen that I just wasn't able to confirm with anybody at the NCAA, I have not heard back on some questions regarding that, is that Grant-Foster will not play in this exhibition game. I think if there's any uncertainty regarding whether he legally is allowed to by the NCAA's rules, certainly you would hold him out of this game, just to be abundantly cautious. I also think that, from what I read, I do think that he is not eligible to play in exhibition games. I think that exhibition games count, they don't count in the standings, of course, as real games for Gonzaga, but I do think they count in terms of not being something he's allowed to do on a practice waiver. Certainly you'd like to get him out on the floor. Any opportunity for Tyon Grant-Foster to spend more time playing basketball with his teammates in this system, in this offense and defense, is good, because he did not have enough time to do that during the offseason. So you'd love to have him on the floor. If you cannot get him on the floor, then it's an opportunity to see who's going to fill that role if Grant-Foster is determined to be ineligible for this season. You get more opportunity to see Steele Venters, more opportunity to see Jalen Warley, more opportunity to see Emmanuel Inocente, as well as freshman Davis Fogle. Those guys will all play in this game regardless, but without Grant-Foster, all of them probably play a little bit more. And for us as fans watching the game, we'll get a bigger opportunity to know what Gonzaga's plan may be if Grant-Foster is determined to not be eligible this year, or even if he is eligible, but just is kind of being babied along a little bit early in the season because of how little time he's spent in Spokane. This will give us a better chance to kind of determine who we think is going to play the majority of those minutes for Gonzaga early in the season. Last point before we get into those 5 things to watch for: Luka Foster going to be in the house on Sunday at the McCarthy Athletic Center for this exhibition game. Luka Foster is a 6'5" wing from Pennsylvania. He's the 40th ranked recruit in the 2026 class, a 4-star player, one of the best shooters and scorers in the entire recruiting class. He listed Gonzaga in his top 9 back in late July, has actually visited every school on his list, either in an official or unofficial capacity, except Gonzaga. Gonzaga will get the final visit for Luka Foster, most likely. That could obviously change, but it's a pretty coveted spot to be, because Gonzaga can say, hey, we know you've seen all these places. We know you heard the pitch from Villanova. You heard the pitch from Georgetown and Virginia and Oregon and Pitt and Ohio State and Oklahoma and all the schools on your list. Michigan, I think the only one I didn't name. And now here's our pitch. Here's what we think. Here's where we kind of believe you could fit in. And certainly being the last school doesn't guarantee you're going to land a player, but means you're fresher in said recruit's brain. Next week, when Luka Foster's thinking about making his decision, or 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, Gonzaga will be fresh on his mind. That is a good spot for Mark Few and the Zags to be. For Gonzaga, they're just hoping this visit happens because they had two wings who have already canceled visits. Hurley Brutus, supposed to be on campus for Craziness in the Kennel, committed to LSU earlier that week and did not arrive on campus. Anthony Felici scheduled a visit to come to Gonzaga November 3rd for their season opener against Texas Southern, canceled that visit, and has now named a top 5 that does not include Gonzaga. Gonzaga is still waiting on a response from center Sam Funches, who was on campus for Craziness in the Kennel, and then also has a visit scheduled on November 8th with consensus 5-star prospect Cameron Holmes. That will be a visit for the Gonzaga's game against Oklahoma at the Spokane Arena. So still plenty of happenings going on with Gonzaga on the recruiting trail, but Luka Foster being on campus this weekend is a big, big deal for Gonzaga and somebody they'd really love to nab a commitment from before the season begins in early November. Well, outside of the recruiting angle and the Tyon Grant-Foster angle, there is still plenty that we're looking forward to in this tune-up game on Sunday. We're going to discuss all of that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, it is almost the weekend, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more money every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered the most. So let's break it down for Gonzaga. Since we didn't have a game last week, we're sticking with big man Braden Huff. He dropped 17 points on 8 of 13 shooting for the Zags in the Craziness in the Kennel event, reminding us all what he's going to bring to this team as a starter this season. Just like Huff delivered for the Zags, DoorDash delivers on your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, and fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Promo period through November 18th. Folks, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow, including over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. And if you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And their Trademaster perks, like priority shipping and dedicated support, make this whole process even smoother. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, folks, segment 2, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, and we're still getting ready for Sunday's exhibition opener for Mark Few and the Gonzaga Bulldogs taking on the Northwest University Eagles, an NAIA school based in Kirkland, Washington. We talked a little bit about the Eagles. We talked about the potential for Tyon Grant-Foster to play or not play in this game, and the fact that it's also a recruiting weekend for Gonzaga with Luka Foster in the house. Now we're going to take a look at what I'll be watching for in this exhibition game. For those of you who are longtime listeners to the show or everyday listeners, I appreciate you. We did this a lot last year, where for every game it was either our keys to victory or kind of our what are we watching for. And obviously that would be dependent on the opponent. In this case, since we're not really looking for like what does Gonzaga need to do to win, it's more what are we wanting to see? What are we going to be kind of keeping a close eye on in this game, as it's our first time really seeing Gonzaga in a true game setting? Number one for me is pretty simple. How do the point guard minutes shake out? Who is primarily playing point guard? Who is playing more off the ball? How do those minutes get kind of utilized for the team this season, or in this game, I should say? The point guard position is going to be dominated by two players. Braden Smith, the Colgate transfer who redshirted this past season. If you want more on Braden Smith, check out Thursday's episode of Locked On Zags. It was our full player preview for Smith. And then also Spanish guard Mario Saint-Superi coming in for his freshman year. We did a preview episode for Mario last week as well, so you can check out both of those if you have not yet. But a recent interview that Mark Few did with John Rothstein on the Inside College Basketball podcast indicated that while I had been under the assumption that Braden Smith was going to play most of the minutes at point guard and Mario was going to kind of split his time playing both on and off the ball, I still think that's maybe true. But when Few was talking to Rothstein, he kind of made it seem like Mario is pushing Braden Smith for a bigger share of those point guard minutes. Few was also very complimentary of Smith. He was complimentary of both players in the interview, but he kind of said, yeah, Mario is pushing Braden Smith, and he sees them kind of playing a share role of the point guard position. So I think that it's going to not be as clear as maybe we had initially thought, where it was like, oh, Braden's going to play 33, 34 minutes a game. The other 5 or 6 minutes a game, Mario's going to play the point guard, but Mario's also going to play 15 or so minutes per game at the 2. That still may end up being the case, but I think it's more like Braden Smith plays 30 minutes a game and Mario plays 10 minutes a game at point guard and another 5 to 8 minutes per game off ball. Or even, Mario and Braden Smith share the floor together for large chunks of the game. And it's kind of that 2-point guard lineup, the way that Gonzaga had in 2020-21 when they had Jalen Suggs and Andrew Nembhard, or in 2016-17 when they had Josh Perkins and Nigel Williams-Goss. Both those teams, of course, went to the national championship. Mark Few loves his 2-point guard lineups. So what I'll be looking for in this game, who's primarily bringing the ball up the floor? How often is Mario doing it versus Braden Smith? Are there times where Mario is bringing the ball up and Smith is on the floor with him? Those are the kind of things that I'm really curious to see how they look. Of course, I want to see how these players perform too, in particular Mario, who I think could really turn some heads with a strong performance in this exhibition game. Number 2 in our what to watch for here is what roles do Graham Ike and Braden Huff have when they're sharing the floor? We're expecting them to start together. That's not a secret. That's what happened the last 3 games last year. It's what happened at Craziness in the Kennel. They are the starting center and power forward for this team. But what I am curious about is whether they're splitting time where one of them is down on the block and one of them is away from the rim and that switches, or whether one of them is consistently down there and the other one's playing in that kind of more traditional power forward role. That's the thing I'm most curious about. And I think in the season, it'll be matchup dependent. So if Gonzaga is playing a team that has a really good rim protector and they're in a man defense and that rim protector is guarding Graham Ike and their other player, their power forward, is guarding Braden Huff, Graham will step out, come out to the 3-point line, pull that defender away from the rim. Braden will go down low, post up. They'll get him the ball and they'll score. If you want proof of this, just watch Gonzaga's win over St. Mary's in the WCC championship game last year, because that is exactly what they did. Graham pulled Mitchell Saxon away from the rim. They got the ball to Braden Huff, who was being defended by Paulus Morauskas, and he had an awesome game. That won't be as relevant in this game where matchups won't be as significant, let's put it that way. But I am curious if we see them alternate or how they end up using when they're on the floor at the same time, how often they switch who's playing down low and who's playing away from the rim. Number 3, and yes, we picked number 3 for a reason. It's how does Steel Vendors look? How does Steel Vendors look in an opportunity to play against an opponent for the first time in his Gonzaga basketball career? He did play in an exhibition game, I believe, prior to hurting his knee back in his first season. So his first time in a while playing in a Gonzaga uniform. He had 9 points on 3 of 4 shooting from deep in the Craziness exhibition. 2 of those threes were in transition. So he was moving well. He was running well. He did not look like he was being bothered by any of his excessive injuries, the ACL injury, as well as the Achilles injury that kept him out for the last 2 years. But I'm excited to see him competing against somebody other than his own teammates. How is he moving? How is he moving laterally? How does his defense look? Again, the quality of competition here we want to take some of the results with a bit of a grain of salt. But certainly if Steel Venters is looking problematic defensively, that is a bit of a cause for concern. Now, if he looks great defensively, it's still a good thing. But again, we'll want to see what that competition looks like when he's playing opponents like Oklahoma and Creighton and Arizona State and some of those other good teams that they play early in the season. But I'm curious to see what Steele's role looks like. I'm also curious to see his playing time as compared to Jalen Warley's playing time or Emmanuel Innocente's playing time. Obviously, all of this depends on Tyon Grant-Foster. If he's out there on the floor, that changes the equation for all of them. If he's not out on the floor, Again, does Steele Venters play any minutes at the 4? If Grant-Foster's not playing, I don't think we'll see a lot of Steele Venters at the 4. Whereas if Grant-Foster is playing, maybe that clears an opportunity for Venters to play some of that small ball 4 role that we're expecting him to do in spurts this upcoming season. Number 4 is about the other transfers. We already mentioned Jalen Warley a little bit, but Warley and Miller are the other two that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. What role do they play? For Adam Miller, does his role look similar to Nolan Hickman's, or do we see him with the ball in his hands more often? My assumption is that he's going to play primarily off the ball. He's going to be somebody who's getting open looks from 3 and attacking closeouts, but not doing a ton else with the basketball in his hands. I don't think he's going to be initiating the offense. They do that continuous motion offense, so he'll get chances to come off screens and look for reads and do that kind of stuff. But I'm curious to see what that role looks like for Miller in his first game, again, without playing his own teammates. And then for Warley, how many different roles does he play is the main question here. Do we see him play any on the ball, where he's the kind of the true point guard on the floor? Do we see him play any small ball 4? Just like we saw him do that a little bit in Craziness in the Kennel, where he was defending Braden Huff. Does he only play the 3? Does he guard at the point of attack? Is he being asked to defend the other team's best ball handler, best offensive player? All of those are main questions. What do we see him doing offensively? Is he just putting his head down and attacking? Is he a connector, a passer? Is he taking any outside shots? Like, what does that look like for him? How much does he play compared to Emmanuel Innocente? That's another question that I'm hoping we'll get some clarity on in this exhibition game. And then number 5, an opportunity to see the freshmen, to see the walk-ons, to see the guys who maybe won't play a ton this season, but who should get an opportunity to play a fair amount in this exhibition game. Davis Fogle, Parker Jefferson, and then the 4 walk-ons, Alonzo Metz, Joaquin Reyes-Moore, Noah Holland, and Cade Orr-Ness. Fogle, the most interesting one to me, especially if Grant-Foster's not playing. We may get a decent chance to see Fogle. Still don't think he ends up in the rotation this year, just because there's 12 players competing for a rotation spot. Even if you take out Grant-Foster, there's still 11 of them. But I'm curious to see how he looks defensively. How does he look on offense? Is he taking outside shots? Is he attacking the rim? What kind of style do we see from him in the minutes that he gets? Same with Jefferson. He only played 6 minutes in Craziness in the Kennel. Excited to see if he gets more run in this game. How much does he play compared to Ismaila Diani? Does he play the 4 exclusively? Does he play around the rim? Like, what does that role look like when he is on the floor? Well, folks, that's going to wrap it up for our conversation about this exhibition game coming up on Sunday. But now we're going to close out the show talking about more of the greatest Europeans to ever play for Gonzaga. We talked about the Eastern Europeans last week. We've already talked about the greatest French Zags of all time. But now we're going to talk about some other Western Europeans, how they did in the Gonzaga uniform, including one who is still on the roster. All that coming up to close out the show in just a second. But first, guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor, 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. So ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to Rugiet, RUGIET.com, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 15% off your first order. That's Rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Folks, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and you'll get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So when you use FanDuel parlays or player props, or even just jump in on the action live, it makes watching football even more exciting since you got a little bit riding on the action. So whether you're a casual fan or you love diving deep into the stats, FanDuel makes those everyday game day experiences so much better. Right now, if you're looking at some odds for Gonzaga this upcoming season, Graham Ike, a bit of a dark horse candidate to win that Wooden Award as the best player in college basketball, plus 5,000 at FanDuel. If you like those odds, then what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app and get started today. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On Zags podcast, closing out the show and the week, talking about more former Zags here in a series we started about 2 months ago, here on the Locked On Zags podcast, talking about every Mark Few era player from various states and ranking them. We rank the best Mark Few era Zags from Oregon, from Colorado, from Minnesota, from Idaho, Illinois, California, Texas, Nevada, Virginia, and then we've done some non-Americans. We did do state of Washington on Wednesday. We also did Canada, France, and Eastern Europe, which included Poland and Serbia and a few other countries as well, Lithuania most notably. Today, we are talking Western European Zags. Now, obviously, we already did France, where we talked about Rony Turioff, Kylian Tilly, Joel Ayayi, Matisse Kaida, Mamary Diallo. Those are your 5 French Zags. So we're not going to talk about them. We're going to instead talk about Gonzaga players from Germany. So there's a pair of, and then a Zag player from Italy, a Zag player from Denmark, and a Zag player from the United Kingdom. Those are the players we're going to talk about today. Those 5, we're going to get into them specifically in a little bit. Obviously, one of them currently on the roster, 2 of them technically on the roster. One of them, Emmanuel Inocente, we'll talk about him in a second. The other one being Mario Saint-Superi from Spain. Obviously, we're not going to rank Mario because he has yet to play in a Gonzaga game, but a year from now, I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, if Mario is second on this list just by virtue of probably being the second most talented player already at this point. In the future, Gonzaga will have another player to add to this list with Jack Cahill, who is committed to the Zags in the 2026 recruiting class. He is from Germany. He will become the 3rd German player to suit up for Mark Few and the Zags when he gets on campus as they transition into the Pac-12 in 26-27. All right, we're going to get into this list here. Number 1, this was probably the easiest number 1 player to pick on any of these lists because he is heads and shoulders above everybody else in this group, and that is one of my favorite Gonzaga players of all time, forward Elias Harris. Elias Harris was at Gonzaga from 2009 to 2013. Part of the reason he's one of my favorite players is because those are the same 4 years that I was at Gonzaga, so got to kind of see Elias grow as his career progressed in Spokane. He played 135 games in a Zag uniform, averaged about 14 points, 7 boards, 1.5 assists. Very efficient score, 55% on 2-pointers, 35.5% from 3. Harris was a 3-time All-WCC player, 2-time All-WCC tournament team, as well as being the 2013 WCC tournament MVP. He was also the 2010 WCC Rookie of the Year and was twice named to the Wooden Award preseason watch list. Elias Harris, because he spent 4 years in Spokane, because he started and arguably had his best season as a freshman, he is all over Gonzaga's record books. Like his name is all over the place. Just a few of the top 10 spots for Elias Harris. He is first in Gonzaga basketball history in defensive rebounds. He is the best by volume defensive rebounder in the history of Gonzaga basketball. He is second overall in rebounds and 3rd in offensive rebounds. He is also 5th in Zag history in total points scored, 5th in field goals, 5th in free throws, and 10th overall in minutes. There is an argument that Elias Harris should have been Gonzaga's first ever one-and-done player. He was tremendous as a freshman, averaged 14.5 points, over 7 rebounds per game, was projected as a late first, early second round pick, opted to come back to school, and he was never bad, but he never quite reached that same threshold that he did as a freshman. Ended up having a very good 4-year career in Spokane, played 2 games in the NBA with the Los Angeles Lakers, and then had a prolific, still going professional career, spent mostly in Germany, but in a handful of other countries as well. One of the best, most favorite Zags for me to watch, a tremendous player, an enforcer, a very, very, very intense, rugged competitor, really fun player to watch. Happy to talk about Elias here and have him at number 1 fairly clearly on this list. 2 through 5 could have been ordered anyway. Like, honestly, the player I have at number 5, I think there's an argument they could have been number 2 on this list. Like, all of these guys are very, very close together. But for number 2, I went with an old school Zag, a player who was on Mark Few's first couple of teams, Germayne Forbes. Germayne Forbes from London, England, was at Gonzaga for 2 years, from 2000 to 2002, played in 50 games in a Zag uniform, started 5 of them. Total numbers about 3 points, 1.5 boards, half an assist per game, 36% from 3. That doesn't really tell the full story for Germayne Forbes. He was one of the greatest basketball players from London really ever. Still to this day, he is considered a kind of an icon in London basketball. He was the first player to go straight from high school basketball in London to Division I basketball in the United States. He's the first player ever to do that. Again, another testament to Mark Few and Gonzaga's. In Mark Few's first year, they're going out and recruiting a guy from a high school in London. Like, that is a testament to how hard this staff worked to build their rosters, especially when they were at an even bigger disadvantage, having not gotten that household name status. Germayne Forbes comes over to the United States, spends 2 years at Gonzaga, but he's behind Dan Dickau and just never really carved out a significant role because he was behind an All-American and a veteran player. Now, he started 3 games in place of Dan Dickau at one point when Dickau was hurt, and he was great. He had 12 points in the first game, 18 points in the second game, and 20 points in the third game. So there's an argument that he could have been a really, really good player had he gotten more opportunity, but that's what happens when you're behind an All-American. He didn't stick around after Dickau departed. He himself transferred to West Georgia, which at the time was Division II, was very, very good for West Georgia for a couple of years, and then had a prolific professional basketball career. Well deserving of a spot on this list here. Certainly a name that doesn't get brought up all that often, but could have been a much different story had he not been behind an all-time program legend in Dickau. Number 3 is the current Zag, who could move up to number 2. I would be pretty surprised if Inocente eventually eclipses Elias Harris. He's already fairly behind the sticks just because Elias was so good for 4 years. But Inocente last year was his first year at Gonzaga, of course, a transfer from Tarleton State, but he is initially from Italy. 31 games last year, started 3 of them, averaged about 2 points, 2 boards, and an assist per game. Stepped into a key role as a defensive stopper for Gonzaga. The stats for Inocente are worse than every other player. He had less points per game, less rebounds per game than every other player on this list. But it was not correct to have him last. I actually originally had him second and decided to move Forbes ahead of him because his numbers were a little bit better. But Inocente is a very, very good player who just doesn't impact the game in ways that show up on the scoreboard. He's a very good point of attack defender. He is a great ball mover offensively, doesn't score a whole lot, but doesn't turn the ball over, just kind of helps keep that offense continuously moving, plays great defense. I'm really excited to see what he looks like in his second season in Spokane this year. I think we're going to see him have an even bigger role for Gonzaga this year. Number 3 on the list is our second German-born player, Matisse Merninghoff. Spent 2 years at Gonzaga from 2010 to 2012, 53 games in a Zag uniform, started 8 of them, averaged about 3 points, 1 rebound, and half an assist per game. He was a lights-out, knockdown three-point shooter his first year at Gonzaga as a freshman, where he shot 45.5% from 3. Then as a sophomore, that plummeted to 31.5%. Here's the thing, Merninghoff was really only on the roster to do one thing. He took 110 threes in 2 years compared to 24 two-point attempts. He was not a good defensive player. He was on this team to space the floor and drill open threes. His freshman year, he was excellent at it. His sophomore year, he was not very good at it, and that was it. He was out the door. But here's the other thing about Merninghoff that you may not know. He's still playing. He's still playing professionally. He has been playing in Germany for BG Göttingen for over a decade now. He was actually recently teammates with Gino Crandall, which is hilarious to think of those guys being teammates together when their Gonzaga careers were 7 years apart from each other, I believe. But Merninghoff was a guy who, had he stuck it out for a couple more years, I think we might have seen some more growth and development in his game, but he ultimately wanted to return home and go play professionally in Germany and had kind of filled his role as a freshman and just wasn't quite able to replicate it his sophomore year. Last, but like I said, not really least, because I think all of these guys are very close together. That would be Jakob Larsen, a center from Denmark, who spent 1 year at Gonzaga in the 2017-18 season, played in 34 games, started 1 game, averaged about 3 points, 2.5 rebounds, 65.5% from the field. He just couldn't quite stick. He was kind of right on the border of being in the rotation. He played like 8-9 minutes per game. Just was buried on a roster that had Jonathan Williams, that had Killian Tilly, that had Rui Hachimura, that had Corey Kispert, that had Jeremy Jones. 4 of those guys played in the NBA. One of them is still playing and played in Summer League this year, the first time in Jones. Like, this is a team that was very, very deep in the front court. And Larsen, had he stuck it out, he could have developed. We've seen international bigs develop a ton at Gonzaga. Shemet Karnowski, Killian Tilly, who's on this list, of course, many others, Filip Petrusev, who have kind of gone and blossomed into stars 2, 3, 4 years into their career. But Larsson didn't do that. He had a couple good games early in his career, including 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists in a loss to Villanova. That's notable because Villanova won the dang championship that year, and Larsson put up really good numbers against the best team in college basketball. But after this season, Larsson ended his professional basketball playing career. There's no indication he played professionally. He did not continue to play college basketball. That was it for Larsson, a player that I think had some upside, had some potential, but just wasn't able to carve out a big role in his first year and didn't stick it out after that for whatever reason. That is wrapping it up for us today here, looking at these Western European Zags. We got more of these still coming your way. We're going to talk about the best Zags from Africa, and we're going to talk about some of the other countries or the other states that have just 1 or 2 players, and we're going to kind of rank some of them as well. Of course, we also are going to have a recap of this exhibition game on Monday's show and keep working through our player preview series, getting you ready by talking about every player on the roster before the season gets underway officially on November 3rd. Thanks again, folks, for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your day and weekend. And of course, as always, and especially now with the game coming up, go Zags.